So now you're in Studio and you should have this white box in front of you. And this white box is located in Start UI, Screen GUI, and you have a frame right here. And this frame is the white box. So now we're ready to start actually designing the menu. So you can drag this white box around and you can resize it and all of that. But it's time to decide where you want your menu to be located. And there are a few different options. You can have it be in the center of your screen. You could have it on the left of your screen if you just resize the frame and put it at the left of your screen. And you can have it at the right of your screen, bottom, top, wherever you want to put it. Now for this tutorial, I'm going to be making a full screen menu, which instead of just manually going here, dragging this into the corner, and then dragging this other end into the other corner, which does work to get full screen. But a very simple way to do that instead for all devices is just to go to size, click the size property in your properties tab, which should be open from the last episode. So just hit the number 1, just enter, and it will be the size of the full screen. Now you can see it's not in the center, so we just have to move it until these green lines make a plus sign, just like this, and then we can stop. And now we see it's the full size of the screen. And it even scales. Now, this is how we make our menu be full screen. And now keep in mind this frame is just the background of the menu. So I'm going to quickly rename it background because it's going to be the main background of our menu. It's going to hold all the other frames and all the buttons and everything like that. So remember, frames are for our organization. And now this white color is really bright. And if we go to our properties and our background color down here, you can see that its values range from 1 or 0, which is completely black, to 225, which is completely white. And this is an RGB, which means that this value is red, 1 to 225. This is blue, 1 to 225. And this is green, 1 to 225. So, with that said, I usually pick a nice gray color for the menu. And to do that, if we just select this background color and type 60 and press enter, you see that now we have a nice gray color for the background of our menu. And now if I were to go and hit the play button and play test the game, you see that the menu is awkwardly cut off at the top, even though it's set to be full screen. And if we move our window size and we change our window size, it's still full screen, but it's cut off here at the top. And even if we resize the top, which can't seem to do at the moment, but it's cut off at the top just randomly and very awkwardly, and for no particular reason, it seems. And the reason is for these buttons up here, all of the chat and menu buttons that we have up here, the built-in Roblox GUI. So if we stop our playtest, to fix this, we go to our Screen GUI, and we can find a property in our Properties tab called Ignore GUI Inset. And what this means when we set it to true is it will not cut the menu off, and instead, if we playtest it again, it will just put our other built-in Roblox GUI buttons on top of the GUI and put our GUI behind them. And so if we check that, we can now have our full menu. And so now, let's just say I want to insert a text button. And let's just say I want this to be my play button. I'm going to put it wherever I want it to go. Again, you can put it wherever. You can put it on the left, right. Personally, I like putting it at the center just because I think it makes it look a lot better. But you can really put it wherever you want to. And so now I can change the background color of it to whatever I want to. If you click this little box right here, it will bring up a color wheel. I don't think you guys can see it, but it will bring up a color wheel. So let's just say I want this to be a nice gray color, a little bit lighter than the menu, just to give it that visibility, but it's still gray. So I'm going to call this the play button, because that's what we're going to make it be. It's going to be the play button. And it's very easy to center things. Just look for the green lines, and right there is centered on the screen. Right here is centered on the y-axis, and right here is centered on the x-axis, and so it's easy to center all of your GUI. And so now we have a button, and you can see that I just got it so that I can edit the text. So a shortcut, instead of going all the way down here, finding text property, which is right here, we can just double click on our button, and now we can change the text. So I'm going to change it to play. Press enter, and it changes the text property down here. And so as you can see, it's very simple, very straightforward, and it makes sense. So now, as we learned last time, I'm going to go down here to our text scale property. I'm going to check that box, and now we have a readable play button. Now you can see that our play button is very square, and it doesn't look very visually appealing. Well, this is where our UI styling comes in. Now, originally I was going to make an episode dedicated to UI styling, but I decided to just include it in designing the menu, because ultimately that's what it is. So now I'm going to click this little plus sign, and I'm going to type in UI corner. I'm going to click on it, and you can see that now after I added the UI corner, it's rounded suddenly. And so because of that, we have it suddenly rounded. Now we can go to the corner radius property, and we can adjust the sharpness of how much it is rounded. So if I click the little arrow right here, we can view both of them. We have scale and offset. Now scale, I'm going to set both of them to 0. That gives us our base square. Scale, if I set it to 1, it's a very extreme curve. Scale, you usually don't want to go above 1. I recommend a value between 0 and 1, usually no more than 0.5, which is this. But you could even do something like 0.02, and that makes it barely noticeable, as you can see. But if I do 0.2 instead, it makes it a whole lot more noticeable. And so this looks visually appealing. Or, putting 0 on our scale, the default value is an offset of 8. Now, offset is a much more small adjustment than the scale. I recommend using offset, and I usually use an offset value of around 20. I usually recommend 15, just because it keeps our buttons in a square shape, but it also makes them rounded. And so I usually recommend an offset of around 15 for the buttons, but it's very simple to style your GUI. Now say I want this button to have an outline, because when I hover over it, the contrast of our button is not great against the gray background. So say I want to give this button a border, and I would click on this little plus sign, just type in UI stroke in the window that pops up, click on a UI stroke, and you can see it made the text bolder. So to make a button have or a text, just any UI object that has text for that matter, have a border, we'll go to the Appearance tab under Properties. We'll select Apply Stroke Mode and change it from Contextual to Border. And we can see now our play button has a border. And now, say I didn't want this border to be black and I want it to be white, I could insert a value of 1 and it would make it white. But again, let's just say I wanted it to be red. I would insert 225, 0, 0, and it would make the border red, because again, this is RGB. If I want to make it blue, 0, 0, 225. 0, 0, 225. You have to put your commas in, and that will make it blue. If I want to make it green, 0, 225, 0, and it would make it lime green. And so you can really make your border whatever color you want. You don't even necessarily need a border. And we can change our button background color right here. And again, this is just exactly the same as our last color with the frame background. And it's a value of 1 to 225, or 0 for black. And we can also adjust the thickness of our border. So say I set the thickness to 5. That's a much more defined border. And also set transparency of your border, so say 0.5. That makes it really thick, but less defined, in the context of it being against a gray background, less bright. And so say I wanted to make this have a red background. I'll type in 225, 0, or 225, 0, 0, and it would make it red. Now, for this tutorial, I'm going to use this border, just because it's very simple. So now that we know how UI corners and UI strokes work and what exactly they are, I'm going to begin and make some other buttons now that we have the play button as a basic starting point. So it's very simple to make more buttons after you already have the first one designed the way you want all of the others to be. You can click on it in your view window or in the Explorer, either one works. Right click and go up somewhere up here should be the duplicate button. And now you see we have two play buttons, and I can drag it and the play button is still there. Now we can line it up with the other buttons, these two red lines that were right there when I line it up. And now I can rename this to settings button. And this will be our settings button. So I'm going to change the text and I'm going to type in settings. And now we can continue this for the rest of our menu, which I will do, and I'll be right back. So now I just simply add credits button, but you can add more buttons, and I recommend that you pause at this time and get your menu how you want to arrange. So say I wanted the buttons over here, I would put all of the buttons over here. And now I'm just going to undo all three of those things, but you get the point. Pause right here and set up your menu the way you want it to be using your Strings UI, your background frame, and your buttons with the corners and strokes. And experiments around with the settings, get it how you want it, and pause the video and come back. Now, assuming that you have your menu set up as you like it, we're going to now look at what colors well together and how to stylize our menu. So now in the example of using a full screen menu, we can really do a lot with it. And now right now, if I were to playtest the game and I click these buttons, you can see that they don't do anything yet. And in the next episode, we'll talk about how to script your menu to actually work. And it's very simple to do. But now we're going to change all of these placeholder colors to colors that we actually want to use. And so on our UI stroke, we're going to change it to, well, for my example, you can change it to whatever you want. I'm going to change it to this nice gray color. I think it blends in a lot better. So now we can just select this, hit Control-C to copy, go to our settings button, the UI stroke, click on the color property, Control-V to paste, and we can see that it changes the color. Do the same thing with our credits button, Control-V to paste, and now we have our outlines are much more fitting for the menu theme that we've chosen, which is a dark, just very basic theme. And you can do whatever you want to make it all cartoony for a simulator type of game, or just anything really. I mean, it's up to your personal preference, but usually I like these darker, easier on the eyes menus. And if you want to make a really cartoony game, then use bright colors and a lot of animations and just things like that, and we'll get into how to animate the menu and all of that when we begin to animate it. And now, whoop, don't know what happened there. Now we have our menu and we have it designed. We have our play button, settings button, credits button, and your example doesn't necessarily have, or your menu doesn't have to look exactly like this example. Again, you can go off and do whatever you want to with it, but I've talked about how to set up your buttons, how to align things, how to make it just look good overall, and how to make your menu full screen. So this is the designing your menu. In all reality, this is probably the easiest step of it all, and scripting it would have to be the hardest in my personal opinion. But we'll get to that in the next episode.